Covered podcast. I am your host, Mya Karren, and on this show we discuss women and how we are showing up in the world. Today's guest, I'm very excited. She is Gurlandi Honore. Guerlandy holds a bachelor's in early childhood education, a master's in curriculum and instruction, and a specialization in moderate disabilities. With over a decade of experience in education, Guerlandy realized the impact of the literacy gap, particularly in the urban setting. This realization inspired Guerlandy to create Hairited, a learning company dedicated to providing culturally responsive identity-affirming literacy materials. Guerlandy is a wife, mother, teacher, and a CEO. Please welcome Gurlandi Honore.
Hi, Mya Karren. How are you?
I'm well. How are you? I'm excited to have this
Good.
conversation.
I'm absolutely excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Okay, so let's just get started. I love the idea of your company, but I kind of want to get to two things and then wrap everything up and put a pin in it with your company,
Yeah.
Hairited. So whenever I talk to people about their natural hair journeys, I always love to start with childhood. So, getting started,
Yeah.
where did you grow up? How were you wearing your hair? And who was doing your hair?
Okay. So I grew up in Haiti.
Okay.
And growing up, I had a lot of people doing my hair. So backstory, my mother and father got married pretty early. My dad, when I was 3, came to the US in search for a better life for us. And so my mom and my sister and I stayed back while my father was sort of like getting the grounds running for us. And so I grew up with lots of women around the house, like my mother, my aunts, my grandma, my grandfather too, but I had a lot of women around. And so it was all the women and more. Cousins were doing my hair, aunties were doing my hair, mom was doing my hair. And so I had a lot of women influencers around me and a lot of people who definitely played a role in my hair journey. So, in Haiti, there's sort of like not always a load of information when it comes to like caring for natural hair in a way that's most appropriate and healthy. And so, parents and cousins and siblings and everybody did the best that they could. And so I was wearing my hair, with the puffs and the braids and the cornrows and the barrettes and all the things. And I really just like enjoyed it. I was like that girl in school who was like taking my barrettes off to give to my best friends if she didn't have barrettes and like doing people's hair in the bathroom. So I've just always had a thing for hair. Yeah.
Okay. And so I heard you talk about braids and puffs. At any point when you were in Haiti or when you came here to the States, did you get a relaxer? Was that something that your family talked about?
Yeah, actually, I never ended up getting a relaxer. By the time the wave of relaxers came around, I just didn't really care for it. My older sister, who's a year older than me, she was asking for a relaxer quite often. And so my father was like, "Well, if you're gonna get a relaxer, then your sister can get one too." And I was like, "No, I don't want one." However, I was always straightening my hair. So although I'm not necessarily sure why I didn't want it, but I just know that I said no to it. But I was straightening my hair quite often. So I had the effect of the relaxer without actually getting it. Yeah.
Okay. So as
Yeah.
far as all of the women, because you named a lot, there were myriad of women doing your hair.
Hmm.
And I love asking these questions because I think sometimes we don't understand or acknowledge just how important our childhood memories or experiences shape who we are as an adult. So while all of these women are doing your hair, what was their attitude towards natural hair? Were they making comments about your natural hair? Were they speaking life into your natural hair? How, as a community, what was the attitude towards natural hair?
Yeah. I don't necessarily know if it was explicitly said. Nor that like it wasn't necessarily a thing. Like they were doing my hair and sometimes with like malpractices, of course, brushes would break and combs would break. But it was never said that like your hair's too rough or your hair's too hard to manage. It was never said. And they enjoyed doing my hair, seemingly. And so it was never a complaint for them to do my hair. It was never like any negative feelings around, my aunts and cousins doing my hair. And so, although it was like not explicitly said, I also noticed that like they too didn't have their natural hair. You know, most of them had a relaxer. And so, with the exception of one auntie who did not have a relaxer, but when she got married, she did get a relaxer. And so it's sort of like hard to answer that question because I can't say we had um negative comments around my natural hair, but I also can't say there was like positive words of encouragement around my natural hair either. It was just not really a thing talked about, you know?
Okay. So, I guess kind of what I'm hearing is that they did it because it needed to be done, but
Yeah,
outside of one aunt, there was no representation. Like
absolutely.
there was no one for you to look up to or ask questions to about the natural hair or how to take care of it.
For sure, for sure, for sure. I think you pinpointed it very well. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I heard you talk about a relaxer. At what age did your father bring you and your sister and your mother over to the States?
Yeah, so we moved here when I was 11, and
Okay,
at that
so
point,
preteen years. Okay.
quite young, and we still were just like rocking our natural hair. But when we moved to the States, we quickly noticed, my sister and I, we quickly noticed that all the girls had straightened hair, and so
Yes.
that's sort of when we started. Straightening our hairs. Actually, we went to school, first day of school, with our little barrettes and I don't know what you call this in America, but like well, I guess it would be like a bow, but like we would wear bows quite often in Haiti. Like you would wear matching bows and all the things. Even at 11, we're still wearing bows. My sister was a year
Nothing
older,
wrong with
so
that.
she was wearing bows, but then like kids made fun of us when we came to school with those. So then we're like, okay, not gonna wear those anymore. And we're not wearing the barrettes, but that's when we started straightening our hairs a little bit more. Yeah.
Is that when you were introduced to the flat iron, or it was kind of
Yeah.
like a blowout?
Yeah, it was the comb, it was the hot comb. We were doing the
Oh,
hot comb
okay,
at that point.
okay,
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah. Mhm.
So you said that your sister wanted a relaxer, and I'm pretty sure at this
Yeah.
time either it was TV or somebody had mentioned to her at school. Why do you think that you were straightening your hair, but you didn't necessarily want a relaxer?
For some reason, I just didn't. Yeah, I mean, all of the girls at church too, they at that point they were getting a relaxer, and so everyone my sister's age was getting a relaxer. So she was like, "I want one too." I think I noticed the damage, honestly. I think I noticed
Ah,
that like they sort of like reached a point in their hair journey where like their hair did not grow. And so I was like, I don't want to do it. I'm really unsure why I was like just not a fan, but I wasn't, you know? Yeah.
that's interesting. If
Yeah.
you were still, if you and your sister and your mother were still in Haiti today, do you think that you eventually would have gotten a relaxer, or you kind of would have done? You do. Okay, why do you
Absolutely.
say that?
Absolutely. That's just the norm,
Almost
like
like a rite of passage.
at some
Okay.
point, like my auntie got a relaxer before she got married. My mother, I believe, also got a relaxer right before she got married. And so I think that's just like what you do, you know? Yeah. And I wonder, I have to ask my other aunties a little bit more whether they got a relaxer before marriage or yeah, or right. Yeah. I think that's just a thing, you just get a relaxer.
That is the thing. Before
Yeah.
you get married, you get a relaxer. Is that like an unsaid thing?
I guess it is like an unsaid thing because that's when my mom did it. That's when one of my aunties did it. I have to check in with my other aunties and see if that story runs true for all of them. But yeah, yeah,
It's
that's interesting.
it's unsaid, but is that
Yeah,
also kind of like for a marriage prospect? That's normal. Is
right.
that
Or
standard?
like the standard of beauty, right? You want to make sure you're presenting yourself well, and so like the best way to do that is by making sure your hair's straight and all the things. Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Take me to college. So
yeah.
you've never had a relaxer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Never.
Take me to college. What were you doing in college? Were you still using the flat iron, or were you loving your curls?
Yeah, so high school, just before I get you there, in high school is when I had this like big awakenings, right? And so I was straightening my hair in middle school. High school, I was straightening my hair. However, sort of like sophomore, well, maybe like junior, yeah, junior year, approaching senior year, I had a mentor at church who was who really just opened my eyes because she used to straighten her hair all the time too, and she had beautiful hair. And so one day she decided to cut it off. And so she went natural, right? She cut off all of her dead ends and like showed up to church with her beautiful afro and all the things. And I was just so like enamored by that. I was like, oh, this is amazing. And so that's when I started to, try to embrace my hair journey too. And I was paying attention to Not Natural on YouTube and like all of the girlies who were starting to grow natural. And so it was like beginning of high school. That's when I started this journey of like not straightening my hair as much and trying to do the fancy hairstyles. I remember one day that same mentor, she came over to my house and she cut off my dead ends. And so that's when I had like my natural moment because my hair was pretty damaged from straightening it for so long. And so she cut off my hair and then she like did this like beautiful updo for me that I was like, oh, this is so cute. I posted it on Facebook and I was like so happy about it. And then one of my peers from school was like, when are you gonna get a perm? I was like, "Oh." And so like that took me back and like I felt a little offended about that and I held on to that comment for quite some time. And so moving on to college, by that point I had become comfortable enough with my hair because I was, one of the few people at my church and my school who was like doing this natural thing. And so people would actually comment on my hair and, the progress that I was making in my hair journey. So college, I really started to become a little bit more confident earlier on. And then by the time I graduated college, it was like, no, we're locked in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the girls on campus or even your friend circle on campus, were they wearing their hair? Were they wearing weaves and extensions? What was it like on campus? Did you have
Yeah.
other people that you could talk to?
I mean, most people were wearing their hair in braids. I mean, I went to a school that was diverse enough for me to be able to see Black students, white students, and just like students of different ethnicities and races. And so most of the Black girls were sort of like wearing braids because at that point, there was like this idea of like us transitioning from the straight hair to our natural hair. That's sort of like when the natural hair movement became a thing in college. So it wasn't quite foreign for me to wear my natural hair. I would see other girls on campus who would have their afros out, and so it wasn't foreign for me to do it. But it was not necessarily the majority. Yeah.
Okay. So you
Hmm.
have graduated college, and I heard you say that you and your natural hair are locked in. You
We're
and
locked in.
you and your natural hair are loving life, and then you
Yes.
decide to teach. So I
Yeah.
do want to make sure I get this correct.
Yeah.
So you have a bachelor's in early childhood education and a master's in curriculum and instruction. Okay. So the bachelor's in early childhood education, just in layman's terms, what is that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like the study of child development and child care.
Okay. And then the
Hmm.
other one in layman's terms, what is that? The
So,
master's.
it's still so that degree is a master's in curriculum and instruction. So, like learning how to effectively teach, looking how to diagnose different curriculums, and with a specialization in moderate disabilities. So, teaching specifically students with disabilities that are not severe.
Okay. When did you discover your love for teaching?
Oh, teaching has always been in my heart, in my family. I mean, I have so many people in my family line who just were in education, are in education. My mother is just like a phenomenal teacher. I grew up with her being an educator. My father, from stories that I've heard, I didn't get a chance to like experience that from him, but he was a principal at some point back home. And so my mother and my father worked together. Funny story, my older sister and I graduated together, even though we're older, because I refused to go to my own class. So I would go to her class. And because my dad was the principal, it was okay. And so I was able to graduate kindergarten twice because I just
Oh
wanted to
my
be next to my
goodness.
sister. And so education is just in me. It's in my family. I have two aunties who also studied education back home in Haiti. Interestingly enough, my husband's father is a lifelong educator. He retired from teaching, and so it's just in my blood. I just couldn't stay away from it, even though I tried. I couldn't stay away from it.
Okay, so when we were talking earlier, you said that you actually started teaching or you went into the classroom the year after COVID.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was a paraprofessional, and basically that's like a teacher's assistant for about 5 years, and that's sort of like where I got. I was doing my undergrad and my master's, and so I was an assistant for that period of time. And then the year of COVID is when like I was finishing my degree, my master's degree, and then the year of COVID is when, well, once COVID ended, was lifted, that's when I went into the classroom
Okay, so that's when you went to the classroom. So the teacher's
as a classroom
assistant
teacher.
as a classroom teacher after
Hmm.
COVID, but
Hmm.
being a teacher's assistant, you are still in the classroom,
Yes,
correct?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay. So to you, what is the definition of literacy?
Mm. Well, that is a really complex question. But when we think about literacy, we think about, so there are two terms I'm going to just talk simply about. So we look at like the simple view of reading, where we look at literacy as just like being able to decode, and then being able to like understand whatever it is that we've decoded, right? But then we
Comprehension?
also say that one time.
Comprehension?
Comprehension, right, right.
Okay.
And so that's like the most general basis. But then like we're also now getting into the science of reading, where we're not just looking at being able to decode. We're looking at phonology. We're looking at phonology is just like the ability to manipulate and hear different sounds in spoken language, right? We're looking at phonology. We're looking at word recognition. We're looking at being able to understand what it is that you are reading, being able to have context based on what it is that you're reading. So when I think about literacy, I think about your ability to navigate the world through sound and language. But that's my personal definition.
Okay.
Hmm.
And I heard you say earlier, because I was actually having a conversation with, she's running for mayor in Tennessee. And then I was
Yeah.
also having a conversation with another educator. One of them said that literacy and comprehension to them is the same thing, or both of them, they go hand in hand.
Okay.
And I heard you say reading, which means you give someone a prompt or you give a child a prompt and they're able to read it. And then
Hmm.
to me, that's when comprehension comes in. Do you understand
Right.
what you've just read? And then being able to ask questions or answer questions, critical thinking. Is that
Hmm.
correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. I would not necessarily say that they're one and the same. I would say
Okay.
that they do go hand in hand, because when we think about reading, right, or the act of like breaking down a word, right? That's like decoding, right? Being able to actually like break the word apart. Like if a 5-year-old sees the word cat and they don't have any decoding skills, they have not associated the letter C with the sound k, the letter A with the sound, with the letter T with the sound, right? If they don't know any of that, they won't be able to read the word cat. Even if they know that a cat goes meow, and if even if they know what a cat looks like, right? And so first you got to be able to like decode the word, be able to put those, and even in that it's like it's very complex, because like you have to like know letter recognition, letter sound association, and then you have to be able to blend those sounds together to put that word together. And so like you've got that piece, and then of course the piece of like knowing, okay, this is what a cat looks like. Not only that, but a cat goes meow, and so many other things, right? And so like a cat has whiskers, and whatever. And so yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to read some statistics and I'm pretty sure that you are aware of them. You are in Boston, correct?
Yeah.
And this is from 2024. It is from the nation's report card. I have four statistics. It says in 2024, black students had an average score that was 41 points lower than for white students. This performance gap was wider than that in 2003. It says in 2024, Hispanic students had an average score that was 42 points lower than that for white students. It says in 2024, male students in Boston had an average score that was lower than that for their female students by 11 points. And the last one, in 2024, students who were identified as economically disadvantaged had an average score that was 33 points lower than that for students who were identified as not economically disadvantaged. And I asked this question of Dr. Herring and Dr. Fegans. When you read these statistics, you see how serious the situation is. But in your opinion, do you think that, and you can do state specific, Boston, or you can do the United States, do you think that people think that it is this bad, or are they aware?
I don't think people are aware, particularly parents. I don't think parents recognize this big gap. Partly because when you send your kids to school, you're sort of like entrusting that the school system will take care of everything, right? Your child comes home with a grade. You look at that grade, but you're looking at that grade in isolation. You're looking at that report in isolation. You're not quite necessarily looking at the whole class. You're not looking at the whole district. You're not looking at the state statistics. You're just looking at what your child brought home, right? And so I don't think parents are getting a big picture of what is actually going on. I also think that we've sort of taking the responsibility on parents' shoulders off a little bit, and maybe that is like systemically done for a reason, or it's that we were trying to help parents that we've now enabled them a little bit too much. But I don't think parents realize, not at all. Because I mean, how often do parents actually receive this kind of information? Do they sit down and say, hey, here's what it actually looks like on a statewide level, right? It's not often. So I don't think people realize how bad it is until, they're exposed to this kind of information, and then they're like, oh shoot, there's actually a huge gap in our specifically in our Black and brown community. Mhm.
And to your point, when I was speaking to Dr. Herron, and this is the reason why I'm asking, because
Yeah.
she is doing this, she's doing the same thing that you're doing. But she was talking about, because I asked her the same question, but she was talking about we have communities and neighborhoods that are illiterate.
Yeah.
So it goes maybe from grandma to
Mhm.
mom to child. The
Mhm.
entire family cannot read.
Yeah.
And just in my opinion, you cannot be a functional adult. We're
Yeah.
not just talking about going to Chick-fil-A and ordering. We're talking about contracts. We're talking
Yeah.
about policy. We're talking about reading signs. I personally think that one of the reasons maybe why it's being covered up or people are not really worried about it is because the access that we have to technology, especially our
Yeah.
children, right?
Yeah.
A child or an adult might not be able to read, but they still know the bathroom sign. A child might not be able to read, but they can still go to Chick-fil-A and point to the chicken sandwich and they can still be fed. But there are a lot of other things that you cannot do when you cannot read, which brings me to the classroom.
Yeah.
What struggles in kindergarten? So that's five?
5, 6.
Okay. 5, 6. What struggles when it comes to literacy have you noticed? I guess you could say pre-COVID and post-COVID. Did you notice any changes?
Yeah, because I wasn't in the classroom as a lead teacher, I didn't quite have this understanding of the importance of literacy. In teaching kindergarten and teaching kids how to read, we utilize this sort of like time called small groups, right? And small groups is a time where teachers will create this grouping system where they'll place their students based on their levels. And this is done internally, right? And you create a system in your classroom based on students' levels, and you meet with them on some sort of a consistent basis, either like twice a week, 3 times a week, depending on what the classroom dynamic is like. and then you provide tailored instructions for those students, either 3 students or 4 students. It's usually not more than that, right? And so we use small groups as a time to like teach specific skills when it comes to reading, because like as a whole, students are getting like whole group instruction, like they're learning the letters, they're practicing letter formation, they're learning the letter sounds, but they're not getting like explicit teaching when it comes to reading. And so because I didn't have that experience, I really am not able to give much of my perspective, because I wasn't running small groups. That was like the teacher's responsibility. I was sort of just like managing the class as the lead teacher was running the small groups. And so I don't necessarily have the comparison before COVID and after COVID. However, I can speak on what I have noticed in my students, post COVID. I can speak about what I have really seen. I think before we talk about like students' ability to sit down and learn, we have to talk about their ability to self-regulate, right? It's impossible for you to learn if you cannot control your body, if you cannot get your body to a point where you are calm, where your nervous system is calm and you're like ready to learn. You know what I mean? And so I have noticed that a lot of the students struggle with self-regulation skills. And so the lack of ability to manage self has certainly played a role in students' ability to actually engage in the learning that's happening and remain focused and have sustained attention when it comes to learning to read. Because in order for you to read, you got to do a lot of hard stuff. Like, kids, once they learn to read, they're like, oh my goodness, I did it. But it can also be like, kids can have or really big emotions when they get stuck on a word and they're like, I can't figure this out. I can't do this. Right. Now, if you don't have tools to you know, manage disappointment and navigate like not being able to do something on the first try, or just being able to sit still while I talk to you about this thing for 5 minutes, it's going to be really hard for you to be able to get to the end goal. And so I have noticed that a lot of students have been struggling with social emotional skills, lack of self-regulation, and that I believe has impacted them a lot on their reading outcome.
Okay, well, since you brought it up, I'm getting ready to bring up a controversial topic.
Yeah.
iPad kids.
Oh my word.
Now, I know that you said that you had started teaching, post COVID.
Yeah.
Can you, and I know for a lot of people, you have parents, you have an administration, you have the kids. As someone who is in the classroom, you're on the forefront. A child walks into your classroom, you spent 3 months with them. Can you tell the difference between a non-iPad kid and iPad kid, or a child who has access to an iPad and they're just like, they can do whatever they want on it? Can you tell the difference?
Absolutely. Because the kids will tell you, I want to be on my iPad. And I've had students
Well,
tell me that.
but in their behavior though, can you tell a difference?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
You'll just see like that irritability,
Hmm.
or just it's sort of like I can do what I want when I want, how I want.
Okay.
And it's just sort of like a learned behavior. Over time, I'm able to build trust with most students, depending on, of course, the dynamic, whether like there's a disability in the making, whether there's like parent support and all the things, right? Over time, with students who like are generally on the just regular track in terms of like there's no disability, parents are quite supportive. Once you let them know, you're able to build trust and you're able to sort of like help that student turn it around, right? But if it's a child where like there's either uh, a learning disability, or parents have sort of like gotten to the point where they're like, you figure it out, you do it, I don't know what to tell you. Then, it's usually like tug of war all year long, But I think I can absolutely tell the kids who have, because at the end of the day, it's an issue of structure. That's all that it is, right? Kids who are able to just be on the iPad all day, unfortunately, their families and the household that they're growing up in has not established proper structure and boundaries. And kids who don't have proper boundaries are typically like very irritable. They're like, you know, typically they're like not wanting to listen to you when you ask them to do something, or
Following
a little
instructions.
bit
Yes.
more, yeah, a little bit more like resistant to like following directions. And so those are some things that I'm able to, tell. I'm like, oh, you get to do what you want at home. Oh, you be on the iPad. Okay, I get it.
Are those, and we read the statistics. Have you noticed, and I don't know how you would even really track this, but have you noticed the kids who have access to the iPad or they can do whatever they want? Are those typically the kids struggling with illiteracy? Are those the ones who are typically a little bit further behind?
I think it depends. I don't I wouldn't say that it's like as black and white as that. Because when I think, I have one student in mind right now. He has access to the iPad quite often, but he's like made great progress when it comes to reading. He's a little bit he You have to sort of challenge him to stay focused, because remember we talked about that attention piece. That attention piece is big. Like he doesn't necessarily want to sit down and read a book. He's like, I want to go get on a computer. But if you're like, no, right now is reading time, we're reading, and, if I sit with him, like, you can do it. Let's try tapping the word out to figure it out. Cause automatically he's like, I don't know it. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Right. But if I'm able to like remind him of the steps that he can take to read the word. And so then he like will sit down and read it. Right. And he's not a student that I would say is struggling right now in terms of reading, but he does require that extra support in order to maintain his attention and stay focused on the task, right? And so I don't think it's like that black and white, because some kids are they're on the iPad, but they're able to like actually pick up a lot of things, both
Yes.
good and bad, right? And
Yes.
so yeah.
When it comes to the curriculum or when it comes to you putting together a lesson, are you noticing that the lesson has to be engaging? Because I imagine when kids are on an iPad, I know right now it's not, I don't know if it's the same age range, but Miss Rachel. Apparently, Miss Rachel has the babies in a chokehold. But like when the children are on the when the children are on the iPad, they can swipe up and they can swipe left and they can tap and something explodes. When it comes to you building a lesson, in order for the children to be receptive, does your lesson always have to be engaging? Does something have to be happening? Or can you just do what you and I used to do and copy notes on a chalkboard?
Yeah. I think so. Depending, of course, on the district, there's flexibility or lack of flexibility, right? Some districts, it's very like straightforward. You have to teach what's written, how it's written, right? Depending on the district, too, you might have a little bit of wiggle room in how you deliver that lesson. I think teachers who are effective just do a great job at figuring out what interests their students, and they just make it happen, right? And so I think as a teacher, you always got to be on 10, because it's just what makes the kids a little bit more engaged. Now, have this idea changed because we now have noticed that kids are struggling with retaining their attention? Perhaps. But I think good teachers just do a good job at keeping their kids engaged. So I'm getting silly. I'm, going up with my voice. I'm going down with my voice. I'm getting on the floor. I'm doing all the things because I need you to be here with me. And if I'm like You're not going to be here with me. And I, and so I think good teachers just find a way to get their students engaged, whatever it takes, they do it.
Okay, so a master's in curriculum and instruction focuses on the design, evaluation, and improvement of educational materials and teaching methods. When you entered into the school district and the school that you are now teaching at, when it came to the curriculum, did you notice any gaps? Like maybe something was missing or something could have been better?
Yeah, I think that cultural piece is often lacking. Um, And I that's one thing that I tried to really do in my classrooms is just to figure out a way to make the curriculum a little bit more culturally responsive. And so what that would look like for me, like one of the units we were learning about the barber shop, right? And so just it was really like our community unit. So we're learning about different things in our community. And so we were learning about the barber shop. And so having kids visit the barbershop, having an actual barbershop in the classroom in our dramatic play where they have black dolls and black hair. And, I had my literacy puzzles in the classroom too, because it just tied into like black hair and all that they were learning. I just love doing that kind of stuff. One of the other units we were learning about construction. And so we spent a lot of time just looking at what engineers do, what different pieces of the construction process. And so one of the things that I did, I made them study Black Wall Street. And so we talked about the construction of Black Wall Street, and if we were to recreate Black Wall Street, what would you make sure would be in there? How would you construct that city, or how would you construct that street? What would you put in it, right? And so I like adding those cultural pieces, whether it is like adding the foods that they eat in the classroom, in the dramatic play area, just things that will make them feel like, oh, I can engage in this learning in a way that feels like a mirror, but also feels like I'm looking into a window, like a mirror as in I see myself, right? I see myself in the learning, also like a window as in like I'm getting an understanding of somebody else's culture. So I think that cultural piece is often lacking.
I want to be in your class. Can I, that's that sounds fun. I don't want to leave parents out. Whenever you would call a parent with an issue or a concern, or whenever you would send something home,
Yeah.
for a lot of parents are like, listen, I work 9 to 5. I don't have time to deal with this.
Yeah.
In your experience, were parents receptive to what it is you were trying to tell them about their children?
Yeah. I think it depends. It depends on the parents' values and
Okay.
just what they prioritized. One of the questions that I love asking parents in the beginning of the school year is, whose shoulders do you stand on? And this question sort of like allows for me to be able to like, okay, what do they believe? And so they like, after I ask them that question, they sort of just like tell me all the things. They just start telling me about their lives. And I'm like, okay, okay, I start to get it, right? And so I start to hear what they value, what they believe in, whether, education is something that's important to them. Or sometimes they're like, I start to see that they're sort of like a one man show kind of parent. And so, like, the parents who are like a one man show, they're typically like, it's your time, go time for you. I'm out the door. Right. And so, that sort of allows me to see what parents value, and depending on what parents value, you'll have that level of response in the partnership in their child's learning. And so I have some parents that till this day, they're sending me pictures of their kids, I'm sending them pictures that I had when I had their students, and it's a great relationship. And that doesn't mean that those students were always um easy to, work with. And when I say easy, I mean like no child is sort of easy to work with. Everybody has their own things, right? But like I have some students who had challenging time because of like a lot of things that were happening in their environment. And so with the parents' support and my support, we were able to like get the child to a place where they're like learning, growing, thriving. And then you also have those students whose parents are like, you figure it out, you know? And so with students like that, like I said, it's usually, you know, pull and tug until the end of the school year.
Okay, so it sounds like in your experience you had a mixed bag.
For sure.
Okay.
For sure.
And you brought it up, and I do want to just expand on it a little bit.
Yeah.
Value. You talked about
Hmm.
it. Do you think the value of education or literacy, just as a community or as a whole, has decreased?
For sure. For sure. I think as a community, we are losing sight of what's important. We are losing sight of um just children development and like how important those foundational years are. At the same time, the same way a lot of parents are like taking this passive stance, I think it's so amazing that there are so many other parents who are now like super duper involved. So I think this is like the space in our society where there's going to be like a huge gap of like parents who are like very non involved, just in their own world. And then those parents who are like intentionally making sure that their children are well rounded in every aspect.
Okay. And in your district, because there are reports, can't speak to whether or not it was true. My
Hmm.
granddaughter, she was in fourth grade. There are reports that there are some children who are being assigned Chromebooks in kindergarten.
Yeah.
In your district, when are they introduced to technology?
Yeah, I mean, technology is introduced quite early. Students are not necessarily like in my grade assigned to a particular Chromebook, like this one is there. However, we have a bin, we have a cart of Chromebooks in the classroom, and there's a technology center where they'll go on the computer, and so like they follow the steps. They get on an app called Lexia that helps them with their reading skills. So Lexia, the good thing about Lexia is it sort of like tailors the instruction based on the student's needs. And so the games and the things that they're doing are based on what the student needs to know and what they have mastered. And so every student is playing sort of like a different game. They're at a different level. And so I'm able to go back and look at that data and make an educated guess on where they're at, what they need to know, and what they need help with. And so, technology is introduced quite early, but I sort of have a hard time saying like it's a good thing, it's a bad thing, because I think it has like its
Yes, it
pros
is
and
complex. It
cons,
can be very
you
complex
know?
and nuanced. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, students do have access to Chromebooks in kindergarten.
Okay. And the
Hmm.
last question, then we're going to get to Hairited. I'm
Yeah.
excited to talk about it. So in your district, there is a lot of research that is happening when it comes to, pen and paper learning versus, I believe they're referring to it as ed tech. There are several lawsuits now coming out. There was one young lady, she graduated as valedictorian. She is
Yeah.
claiming that she is illiterate. Mississippi, they are actually
Mm.
going back to phonics. With all of this going out, or with all of this going on, have you noticed your school district pulling back on technology at least a little bit and going back to pen and paper? Or is it
I
kind of the
have
same?
I have not seen that. I think it's relatively the same. But I do understand that like a lot of students struggle, and I'm going to speak in regards to early childhood education because that's where I have expertise on, right? I'm not necessarily sure about the upper grades, but students are struggling with fine motor skills, like their ability
Yes.
to hold on to a pencil and
Yes.
write their name. It's like we can't hold a pencil and we're 5, 6. Like, or we don't like playing with Play-Doh. We don't like touching different textures you know, and so, or we don't like to put our hands in paint. All of those things, help build your dexterity in your fingers, right? Playing with Play-Doh, holding a pencil, using dot markers, all those things help. And so I do think that we need to go back. I wouldn't say we need to go back, right? I think we need to analyze whether the systems that we have right now are actually helping and working. Are they actually getting students to do what they need to do on a grade level? So I can absolutely understand the stance of going back to phonics and back to the basics.
All right, so you are the CEO of Hairited, and when you reached out to me, you took your love of learning and teaching and natural hair, and you
Yeah.
have a couple of products. And when you sent me the photo of the B is for Bantu knots, I said, "Yes, ma'am, we have to talk." So tell us what Hairited is, where's the inspiration, and what it is.
Yeah. Heritage really is just a combination of two things that I really love and I think are important in the world. I think representation is super duper duper important. I've always been an avid lover of hair and I recognize how that plays a role into my confidence. And I also am a teacher and I love teaching reading. And so when looking at the statistics and the gap, specifically in the Black and Brown community, I said to myself, well, something needs to be done. Somebody has to do something. And other people are doing amazing things. But I said, well, I have to do something. And so I decided to create culturally responsive literacy tools. So when I say culturally responsive, I mean literacy tools that showcase Black and Brown children in their natural hair identities because hair is something that kids just have access to. They're born with it. Their parents are doing their hair, their caretakers are doing their hair. They're seeing people at home with different natural hairstyles. And so it's just something that they have access to that they have that background knowledge already. Although they might not always have the language for it, but they're able to see it and like, oh, I know this thing, right? Oh, I've seen this thing. What's it called? It's called a hairbrush. Oh, those are your edges. Yeah, it's moisturized. And so that's what it is. We create literacy resources that highlight Black and Brown children in their hair identities.
Okay, so you have products. Either show us your bestseller or your favorite product.
Yeah, our bestseller is the letter identification or letter matching puzzle. This one, what I love about it is it goes through all of the letters of the alphabet and then it matches the letter with a picture that is associated with that sound. And so if we look at the letter A, so the way that we teach parents to use this is you're teaching the kid the letter, but you're also telling them that the letter A says ah. Like if I say afro, what sound does my mouth make first? Ah, right? N says for natural. And so it's teaching them the letters, it's teaching them the letter sound, it's helping them to be able to associate a letter with a sound, figuring out the beginning sounds and it goes through all the letters of the alphabet. So this one is my absolute best. It's our best seller, but my favorite is the coloring book. So the coloring book, it helps kids with letter formation, which we were talking a little bit earlier about that lack of fine motor skills. And so this helps kids with that fine motor skills. And it goes through all the letters of the alphabet and they're able to sort of make the letters of the alphabet and then color the picture. So P for ponytail. Let's see. We have L for locks, O for oiling. And it just goes through all the letters of the alphabet. This one is my favorite picture. L for locks. And so, yeah, this one is my favorite because I like to color. I think it's a really relaxing task. And so the coloring book is my favorite, but our bestseller is the letter matching puzzle.
Okay. And what has been, I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but what has the community response been?
You know, it's actually interesting because sometimes I get in my soapbox with my husband. I'm like, people don't care. I think it's like there's a lot of education that needs to be done around the importance of literacy and around finding products that allow for parents to be partners with their kids, not products who just hand their kids off to something, right? And so if we're looking at the screens like we were talking about earlier. You can leave your kids in front of the screen, go, do your own thing, whether it's like doing laundry or cleaning the house but with these products, you sort of need to be like there because your child might not know. They might run into a word they're like, I don't know what this is. Like, you know what I mean? And they need parents to be able to like roots or what are your roots? And like, you know what I mean? There are things that they might need support with. And so I think our products really like require for parents to kind of like sit side by side with their kids, play with their kids, engage with their kids. And I think there's still a lot of work to do around our community, around the importance of that. And so I think the community's taking time to find this useful or to maybe the parents who, you know, do find it useful just have not found this yet. But I think there's a little bit of hesitancy around just like engaging in something that requires parents' attention as well.
It's interesting you say that. I thought the
Yeah.
community would have been, oh, little Monica, she wears Bantu knots. B is for Bantu knots. I thought the response would have been, and I understand what you're saying when it comes to the
Yeah.
hesitancy, because for some, and even unfortunately, the child's parent might be illiterate or might not have the best reading skills. But I understand when you say the hesitancy is because they actually have to teach or interact with their child in that way. Is
Yeah.
that what I'm hearing?
Right. And it sort of like goes to what we were talking about earlier. Like it's like there are those families who are like, oh, this is amazing, right? And it's like that split. You have the families that love this. And, I get reviews. They're like, I'm so glad I have this for my son. I'm so glad I have this for my daughter, right? But again, it's like it's like a split. You have some people who really do love it. And then some people who are like, you want me to actually sit down and teach? Not doing it.
And what age range would you say that this, I would probably say, or what, I guess, age demographic mostly by, or when can you start with your
Yeah,
child?
this is for like kids who are, depending on the family, between 2-ish to 8. So two for those parents who are like super duper involved and are trying to get their kids, you know, um, just exposed to literacy at a young age. This is great for them, right? Like my nephew, he's able to recognize all of his letters at this point, and he's not even 2 yet, right? And so, my sister does a great job at making sure that he's exposed to literacy on a consistent basis. But for kids who are starting their reading journey, who are starting to learn their letters, their letter sounds, the alphabet, matching puzzles great for them because it helps them to actually recognize the letter and then talk about some of the sounds. For kids who are a little bit older, like 5, 6, who sort of maybe have their letter sounds and letter ID down, but are still working on letter formation and like matching, knowing the letter to forming the letter, then the coloring book would be great. We also have the word association puzzle, which is for kids who are, much older, who've practiced, who already know how to read and can decode. And so they're putting the pieces of the puzzles together. And so that helps them more with like attention, with building vocabulary, because they're just reading the word and having dialogue about the word. And so we'll say between 2 to 8.
Okay.
Hmm.
And for most of the things that I have read, like A is for Afro, E is for edges, B is for
Yeah.
Bantu knots, these are very cultural phrases or words. And you
Yeah.
talked about representation earlier. Why was it important for you from A to Z to do it that way?
Yeah, I think utilizing hair is just a great advantage point because kids have reference. And so that's why we use hair. Kids have that reference point and parents do too. And then we also, as an avid lover of hair, I'm always teaching women about how to care for their natural hair. I also, create YouTube videos on natural hair and have like amazing conversations with amazing women about caring for natural hair. I think the earlier we can start this journey of embracing our natural identity, the better that it is. So why not do it through literacy? Why not do it through learning tools, right? When kids see themselves in things that they are learning, I always say they not only learn, but they thrive because they're like, oh, I belong in the books yeah, that's me, and so I think utilizing hair was just an amazing advantage point that we had to take over. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any new products coming up or anything that you're thinking about coming out with?
No new products as of right now. I think right now we're really focused on community partnerships, making sure that the community knows about us and that we are sort of mastering what we have right now before we launch into new ventures. Yeah.
Okay. And what is one easy tip for parents when it comes to reading with their child? What is one thing that they can do every day, every other day? What is an easy tip?
Yeah, I would say, can I say two things? The first one, of course, we know the importance of reading to your kids, right? Just prioritizing reading to your kids, whether it is children books or books that you're reading. If you're in school, read. And you're like learning about, you have nursing books, read them nursing books. Okay. If you're in school and you're learning about law, read them the law, like just read whatever it is that you have access to, right? Or whatever it is that you have access to. If you have access to newsletters, read the newsletters. If you have access to newspapers, read the newspapers. I don't want parents to feel like, well, I don't have access to children books and I don't have all of this. It doesn't matter. Whatever you have access to, read to your kids, right? And so try to read every single day. I make sure that my daughter gets reading time in the morning, reading time before bed. And so we do it twice a day because we're a reading family. In addition to that, I think at an early age, I would really say that you should prioritize letter sounds over letter names. I think, we love it when our kids can say the alphabet, and I love that for them. I do, but I really want them to know their letter sounds because that's what helps them to read. You don't look at the word cat and say CAT. You say the sounds that produce the word cat. And so, prioritizing on letter sounds, I think, is an amazing shift that we have to make in our mindset. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We are coming to the end of our conversation. I just want to do a couple of rapid fire fun questions. Are
Yeah.
you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Favorite hairstyle?
A nice twist out. Yes.
Okay, now that was my next question. You answered
Yeah.
it. Are you twist out or a braid out girl?
Definitely twist out
What is the
for sure.
craziest hairstyle or color you rocked when you were younger?
I've never had color, but I've done blue, black, and I loved it. Like a deep blue, and I liked it. Hmm.
Okay. If you
Yeah.
could steal someone's hairstyle, whose would it be?
Yours, because you just
My
be
this one. Thank you.
honestly, I have to try this hairstyle, but I think I need to wait until my hair is a little bit longer. But yes.
It doesn't. Well, I did just cut my hair recently, but I'm still able to
You
do
still
this.
able
I
to do
can
it?
I can
Because
show
this
you.
hairstyle looks phenomenal. Like,
Thank
just
you.
love it.
And then the last question, you have a daughter, correct?
Hmm.
What is if she is able, what is her favorite Hairited product?
I mean, she just throws them around because she's still one, so she's not
Okay, so
like
she's not
playing
there
with them
yet.
now. She's not there yet. Yeah, she's not
Okay.
there yet. She's not there yet. But
All right.
hopefully, her and I can do a lot of bonding time with the coloring book.
Yes,
I
that
see
would
a
be
lot of like
amazing.
mother-daughter bonding time of the coloring book when she gets a little bit older. Yeah.
I love that. All right, Gurlandi, we are coming to the end of our conversation. Please let people know what is coming up for you on the hair side part and then what is coming up for Heritage. Anything you want people to know and where people can follow and support you.
Yeah, on the hair side, I am really excited to be diving a little bit deeper into helping educate women around their natural hair, just collaborating with amazing trichologists, hairstylists, and just women who are just embracing their natural hair journey. So on my YouTube, if you go there, I have some podcasts coming up. I recorded one yesterday that I'm super excited about dropping. I have some videos, but I dropped your video earlier today when I had the conversation with you. And so if you go on Made with Love Hair, you'll be able to stay connected with me, and Made with Love Hair on all my social media platforms is just all hair education. Now, in terms of Hairited, I'm really excited for people to get to know us. I'm really excited for people to learn about how they can actively get involved in their child's literacy journey, I really just want to start seeing the numbers rise when it comes to our Black and Brown children in their reading skills. And so, if you have a child within the ages 2 to 8 and you're looking for resources that will help them increase their letter ID, letter sound association, or just like their literacy journey altogether, I think you should definitely check out our website. You saw our products. I think they're pretty cool. And so check them out. Yeah, that's really all with us right now.
Okay. And for Hairited, because when I was on your page, I did see you
Yeah.
reading to a group of children and you talked about community outreach.
Yes.
Are there any community
Yes.
collaborations happening soon that you want people
Um,
to know about?
yeah, as of right now, we're sort of tying off our rooted in reading series where I was partnering with different different hair salons, but I do have one more in the month of July. So if you are in the Boston area, I'll be posting information about that pretty soon, where I'll be working with a hairstylist and we'll have, this one will be a little bit more interesting that I'm not just reading to the kids. We're doing some reading, we're doing some activities, we have some hair demos, we have some dolls coming in that kids will get education from the hairstylist on how to do different hairstyles. So we're really putting together hair education and literacy. And so I'm really excited about that one. If you're in the Boston area, I think you should definitely stay connected.
If I was in the Boston area, I would go. Okay. Okay, Guerlandy, like I said before, this has been an amazing conversation. I will put your information made with love and Hairited in the description box. If there is nothing else, I'm going to say good afternoon to you and bye to the community. Bye.
Thank you so much, Maya.
Of course.